On October 23, 2011, during the Malaysian MotoGP Grand Prix at the Sepang circuit, 24-year-old San Carlo Honda Gresini rider Marco Simoncelli was riding his Honda RC212V 800cc and starting the second lap of the race. At turn 11, at a speed of approximately 105 miles per hour, his bike suddenly lost traction at the rear. The bike began to drift to the outside, but Simoncelli continued to hold the handlebars, trying to regain control. This resulted in a sharp spin. The bike veered back to the right, inside the turn, right in front of the flow of riders. Colin Edwards, who was physically unable to change his line, was first on the track, his Yamaha hitting Simoncelli in the back. A split second later, Valentino Rossi, who was riding behind him, hit Simoncelli with a second glancing blow to the head. The force of the rotational side impact was so intense that Simoncelli's helmet cracked and tore off his head, an extremely rare and almost impossible occurrence with modern helmets. The race was immediately red flagged. At the medical center, severe head, neck, and chest injuries were diagnosed. Resuscitation efforts lasted approximately 45 minutes, after which doctors officially declared him dead. This accident will forever remain one of the most unusual and technically unique tragedies in MotoGP. On April 6, 2003, at his home circuit of Suzuka, Daijiro Kato, one of the most talented Japanese motorcycle racers of his generation and the 250cc world champion, started his second full season in MotoGP. He rode a Honda RC211V prototype, a 990 cubic centimeter beast producing over 230 horsepower, and maintained a steady racing pace from the opening laps. On the third lap, approaching the high-speed junction 130R Casio Triangle, Kato's bike became unstable for an unknown reason. Honda telemetry showed that the rider wasn't braking, throttle down, or making any directional adjustments, as if the bike had stopped responding or Daijiro had lost consciousness. At approximately 125 miles per hour, his RC211V went straight ahead without entering the turn and crashed into the inside barrier near the chicane. The impact was devastating. The bike essentially crashed into the wall at a right angle. Kato suffered severe injuries to his head, skull, and spinal cord. Doctors fought for his life for almost 2 weeks, but his condition was critical from the start. On April 20, 2003, Daijiro Kato died in a Tokyo hospital without regaining consciousness. This accident became one of the most tragic and unusual in MotoGP history, not only because of the extent of the damage, but also because of the mystery surrounding the loss of control. There's still no consensus on what happened between 130R and the chicane entrance. On June 3, 2016, during Moto2 practice, the young and extremely fast Spaniard, Luis Salom, known for his aggressive yet careful style, was preparing for the race at the circuit in Catalunya. His Kalex Moto2, a lightweight prototype with a 600cc engine, was tearing around the track at a typical Moto2 speed of around 100 miles per hour. At turn 12, one of the fastest sections of the track, Salom was on the outside, but upon exiting the corner, the front wheel suddenly lost traction, a classic low side only occurring very close to the runoff zone. Salom's motorcycle flew straight ahead of the rider and struck an inflatable barrier erected in front of a concrete wall. But the most tragic detail was the rider's fall trajectory. Luis slid along the asphalt behind the motorcycle and crashed into the bike, which bounced off the protective barrier and effectively struck him head-on. The impact was devastating. Medics arrived within seconds. Salom was resuscitated right on the track, then rushed to the track hospital, but his injuries proved fatal. An hour after the accident, Luis Salom died. This tragedy led to immediate changes to the track configurations MotoGP, Moto2, and Moto3. On September 5, 2010, on a sunny day at the Misano circuit, one of Japan's most promising young riders, 19-year-old Shoya Tomizawa, was preparing for another attack on the podium. His Suter MMX Moto2 was reaching class-standard speeds of 140 miles per hour on the straights and just under 100 miles per hour in the high-speed corners. On lap 15 of the race, Tomizawa was entering the fast left-hander Curvone when his rear wheel suddenly lost traction. The bike slid sideways, literally throwing him onto the track in front of a stream of motorcycles traveling at full racing speed. Following him, Scott Redding tried to swerve, but contact was unavoidable. His bike clipped Tomizawa at high speed. A moment later, Alex DeAngelis, riding directly behind Redding, rode across the Japanese rider's lower body and sent him flying over his bike. The speed at the moment of impact exceeded 140 miles per hour. Tomizawa was thrown to the edge of the track. Paramedics arrived immediately, resuscitated him on the spot, and rushed him to the hospital in Riccione. His chest, abdominal, and head injuries were critical. Despite the doctor's efforts, Shoya Tomizawa died approximately an hour later. The race was not stopped, a decision that sparked considerable controversy. However, MotoGP subsequently tightened the rules, improved runoff zones, and changed its approach to safety in high-speed corners. Shoya Tomizawa will go down in MotoGP history as one of the brightest and most promising talents of his generation, killed in a rare, almost impossible chain of events. On May 20th, 1973, one of the most chaotic and poorly organized Grand Prix in history took place at the legendary Monza circuit. The grass on the shoulders hadn't been cleared, the oil on the asphalt hadn't been wiped off, and the marshals barely communicated with each other, all in a class where bikes were capable of speeds up to 150 miles per hour. The 250cc race started in a tight group. On the very first lap, on the high-speed right-hander Curva Grande, Italian veteran Renzo Pasolini suddenly lost control. It would later be revealed that the cause could have been oil on the track from the previous race, or a seized engine in his Ermachi. Pasolini fell, his bike sliding sideways, and just then, Jarno Saarinen, Yamaha star, the new super champion, and one of the most progressive riders of his time, crashed into him at full speed. The impact was catastrophic. Both bikes exploded in a flurry of sparks, and the riders' bodies were thrown to the opposite side of the track. But the nightmare didn't end there. The other riders behind didn't see the crash. The speed was around 120 miles per hour. The motorcycles crashed into debris, clipping helmets and raising clouds of dust and fuel. Several more riders fell in the general chaos. The red flag was raised too late, the medics took a long time to arrive, and the track remained dangerous. Saarinen, the championship leader, died instantly. Pasolini also died. This became the darkest chapter in MotoGP of the 1970s. Following this double tragedy, Monza was excluded from the motorcycle calendar for almost 20 years, and the FIM finally began to implement strict safety standards, runoff zones, and track monitoring. The deaths of Saarinen and Pasolini were a moment that literally changed the sport. Each of these tragedies is not just a dark chapter in the history of MotoGP. They are turning points that made the sport safer, faster, and wiser. We remember those we've lost, and we keep racing because of them. Mort was with you. Like and subscribe to the channel.